"Please hire me for just one night. My daughter is starving," begged the Apache widow. The wind howled through the narrow streets of the small town, rattling wooden shutters and tossing leaves along the cobblestone roads. Rain fell in thin sheets, soaking the earth and making the streets slippery. In the dim glow of the lanterns that lined the town's main street, a lone figure moved slowly and carefully. It was a woman, hunched and tired, holding a small child tightly against her chest. Her clothes were worn and threadbare, her shawl patched in several places, and her feet were caked with mud. The woman's face was pale and lined, but her eyes, though tired, shone with determination. Every step she took seemed heavy, as if the world itself weighed upon her shoulders. The child, no more than 5 or 6 years old, clung to her mother's neck, shivering from the cold. Her little hands were thin and fragile, and her hair was tangled from days without proper care. She sniffled softly, trying to keep quiet, but a small, pitiful whimper escaped her lips. The mother glanced down at her daughter and whispered soothing words, though her voice trembled. "Almost there, my love, just a little further." They reached the edge of the town where a small tavern stood, its warm light spilling onto the wet street like a beacon. The smell of cooked food drifted through the air, a mixture of bread, roasted vegetables, and sweet pies. For a moment, the mother and child paused, breathing in the aroma. Her stomach rumbled painfully, reminding her of how long it had been since she last ate. She looked at her daughter, whose small stomach had gone days without a proper meal. The sight made her heart ache, and she swallowed hard to hold back her tears. Inside the tavern, the warmth and chatter were in stark contrast to the cold, wet world outside. Patrons laughed quietly at their tables, mugs of tea and plates of food before them. The fire crackled in the hearth, sending flickering shadows across the wooden walls. The mother hesitated at the doorway, unsure if she would be allowed in. Her eyes scanned the room, taking in the people, the tables, and the innkeeper standing behind the counter. He was a tall man with a stern face, wearing a simple vest and a clean apron. He looked busy, arranging mugs and wiping the counter, but the mother knew she had to try. She stepped forward, her wet shoes making soft, sloshing sounds on the wooden floor. She clutched her child closer and cleared her throat softly. "Excuse me, sir," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The innkeeper turned, his expression neutral, and raised an eyebrow. I am in need of work," she continued, her voice trembling slightly. "Please hire me for just one night. My daughter is starving." For a moment the innkeeper said nothing. He looked at the woman and the small child in her arms, noticing the mud on their clothes, the pallor of their skin, and the fear in their eyes. The mother's plea was simple, but it carried a depth of despair that was hard to ignore. He could see the exhaustion etched into every line of her face, and the way her hands shook as she held her daughter. He could hear the faint whimper of the child, soft but persistent, a sound that tugged at the heart. The mother's eyes met his, and she added softly, "I only need one night. I will do anything you ask." "Please, sir, my daughter is hungry, and I have nowhere else to turn." Her voice broke slightly on the last word, and she wiped a tear from her cheek. The innkeeper's stern gaze softened for a moment. He could feel the weight of her desperation, the urgency of a mother trying to protect her child from hunger. The patrons in the tavern watched silently. Some whispered to each other, their curiosity piqued by the woman's appearance and words. Others looked away, unsure of what to think. The mother's presence had changed the atmosphere, replacing the light-hearted chatter with a quiet tension. She was not demanding charity. She was asking for a chance, a single opportunity to care for her child. That made her courage and humility even more striking. Finally, the innkeeper spoke. His voice was calm but firm. "One night," he said. "You can work for one night, and then we will see what happens after that." Relief washed over the mother's face, and she nodded quickly, barely able to contain her gratitude. "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. She adjusted her hold on her daughter and took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. He gestured toward a small corner of the tavern. "You may stay there for now," he said. "But you must work hard if you want to earn your meal." The mother nodded again, and with careful steps, she moved toward the designated area. Her daughter clung to her, too weak to walk on her own, and the mother whispered soft words of encouragement, promising her that soon she would have something warm to eat. The mother's eyes wandered around the tavern as she moved. She noticed the fire glowing brightly in the hearth, the smell of fresh bread baking in the kitchen, and the laughter of a few patrons enjoying their evening. For a brief moment, she allowed herself to imagine a life where her daughter could be safe, warm, and well-fed. It was a life she had only dreamed of, one that felt almost too distant to believe in. Yet here, inside the tavern, that dream seemed just a little closer. The mother knelt beside her daughter, brushing the wet hair from her face and holding her close. "Soon, my love," she whispered. "Soon we will eat. You will be safe, I promise." The little girl looked up at her mother with tired eyes, a small smile appearing despite her weakness. It was a smile that filled the mother with hope and strengthened her resolve. She would do everything in her power to protect her child, no matter how difficult the task. As the night wore on, the mother prepared herself for the work ahead. She knew she would need every ounce of strength to clean the tavern, prepare the meals, and serve the patrons. Yet her love for her daughter made the work seem lighter, almost bearable. Each step, each movement was driven by the thought of giving her daughter a warm meal and a safe place to rest. Even as exhaustion began to set in, the mother did not falter. She moved quietly, efficiently, and with purpose, earning small nods of approval from the innkeeper. The patrons began to notice her presence, some offering kind smiles and words of encouragement. She was not asking for charity. She was offering her hard work and dedication in exchange for a chance to care for her daughter. That dignity, even in the face of despair, made her story remarkable. By the time the first hints of dawn appeared outside the tavern windows, the mother had completed her tasks. She looked down at her daughter, who was now resting on a small blanket provided by the innkeeper. The little girl stirred slightly, her eyes opening to meet her mother's. The mother smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. "See, my love," she whispered. One night, and we have warmth and food and hope." For the first time in many days, the mother allowed herself a moment of relief. She had survived the night, not just for herself, but for the child she loved more than anything in the world. The tavern, once a place of strangers and uncertainty, had become a place of possibility, a place where hope could grow even in the harshest circumstances. And as the sun rose, casting golden light through the windows, the mother held her daughter close and whispered a promise she would never forget, that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she would never give up. For love, determination, and courage could overcome even the darkest nights. The next morning, the tavern was alive with the gentle hum of activity. Sunlight streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow over the wooden tables and chairs. The fire in the hearth crackled, giving off a comforting warmth that filled the room. The mother, Maria, stirred quietly, careful not to wake her daughter, who slept on a small blanket by her side. She watched the sunlight fall across her daughter's face, soft and peaceful, and for the first time in many days, Maria felt a small sense of hope. The night had been difficult, but it had also given her a chance, a single opportunity to earn food and shelter for her child. She had promised herself that she would work hard, and she was determined to keep that promise. Maria gently shook her daughter awake, brushing the damp hair from her small forehead. "It's morning, my love," she whispered softly. "Time to eat something warm." The little girl blinked sleepily, her eyes widening as the smell of fresh bread and cooked food reached her. For a brief moment, her tiny face lit up with excitement, and Maria felt her heart swell. After helping her daughter sit and eat, Maria rose to begin her morning tasks. The innkeeper, Samuel, had already started arranging the tables and preparing for the day's guests. He noticed her moving with purpose and nodded quietly, a hint of approval in his eyes. Maria bowed slightly in gratitude and began her work. She swept the floors, cleaned the tables, and carried dishes to and from the kitchen. Though her muscles ached from exhaustion, she did not complain. Every movement, every task was done with care and attention. As the day went on, more people arrived at the tavern. Some were travelers, passing through the town with tired feet and weary faces. Others were local townsfolk, coming for their morning meal or a warm drink. Maria moved among them, serving food with a quiet grace. She noticed the way some of the customers looked at her, their expressions curious but kind. A few even offered gentle smiles or encouraging words. "Good morning, miss. You look very hardworking," one woman said. Maria smiled politely, feeling a small surge of pride. She worked tirelessly, but she also began to notice that her efforts were being recognized. During a brief lull in the morning, Samuel approached Maria. "You've done well so far," he said. "Your daughter is lucky to have a mother like you. Keep working hard and you'll see that people will start to trust you." Maria nodded, feeling a warmth in her chest. Trust had always been something difficult to come by, but now she was beginning to feel that perhaps, in this small town, people could see her determination and care. She returned to her tasks with renewed energy, motivated by Samuel's words and the thought of giving her daughter a better day. Maria's daughter, though small and fragile, began to explore the tavern cautiously. She watched as her mother worked, sometimes trying to help by carrying small cloths or wiping a table. Maria smiled gently, letting her daughter feel useful, knowing that even the smallest tasks could give her confidence. "You're very strong, my love," Maria whispered, ruffling her daughter's hair. "One day you'll do amazing things." The little girl giggled softly, a sound that filled the tavern with a quiet joy. As the day continued, Maria faced small challenges, each testing her patience and strength. A plate of soup spilled on the floor, and she had to clean it quickly before it caused any trouble. A few customers asked for extra food or water, and Maria moved swiftly to fulfill their requests. Through it all, she remained calm and composed, never letting frustration show. Her determination to care for her daughter gave her a strength she did not know she possessed. By midday, the tavern became busier, with travelers arriving from nearby towns. Maria moved with practiced efficiency, balancing trays of food, clearing tables, and attending to the innkeeper's requests. She felt her muscles ache and her feet throb, but she did not stop. Every task she completed brought her closer to ensuring her daughter's safety and comfort. She even began to notice small gestures of kindness from the townsfolk, someone offering extra bread, another giving a warm smile, and one man quietly leaving a few coins on the counter. During a short break, Maria sat with her daughter near the hearth. The little girl ate slowly, savoring each bite of bread and stew. Maria watched her carefully, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. She knew that this moment, small as it was, represented hope. Hope that things could get better, hope that her daughter could grow strong and healthy, and hope that kindness could exist even in a world that often seemed harsh. "We're safe here, my love," Maria whispered, holding her daughter close. "We will get through this, one day at a time." As the afternoon progressed, Maria's hard work began to draw attention. The tavern's regular patrons, who had been cautious at first, started to speak kindly to her. "You work very hard, miss," one man said. "It's rare to see someone so dedicated." Another added, "Your daughter is lucky to have you." Maria nodded politely, feeling a quiet pride. She had never sought praise, but the acknowledgement warmed her heart. For the first time in a long while, she felt that her efforts mattered and that she was seen not just as a desperate stranger, but as a person deserving of respect. Samuel, observing from behind the counter, noticed the growing respect Maria was receiving. He had initially agreed to give her work for just one night, unsure of what to expect. But now, seeing her diligence and care, he realized that this woman and her daughter had brought something special to the tavern, a reminder of resilience, love, and hope. He approached Maria during a brief quiet moment and said, "You're doing better than I expected. Keep this up, and I think people will start to trust you completely." Maria smiled humbly, grateful for his words, and returned to her tasks with renewed energy. As evening approached, the tavern began to quiet down. The last travelers had eaten their meals and were preparing to leave. Maria cleaned the remaining tables and helped wash the dishes in the kitchen. She moved carefully, making sure everything was in order for the next day. Her daughter sat nearby, watching with wide eyes, absorbing the lessons of hard work and responsibility from her mother. Maria felt a swell of pride at her child's curiosity and eagerness to learn. When the work was finally done, Maria and her daughter sat together by the hearth, exhausted but satisfied. The little girl rested her head on her mother's lap, and Maria gently stroked her hair. "We did it, my love," she whispered softly. "One day at a time, we will be okay." The warmth of the fire and the quiet of the tavern gave them a moment of peace, a small sanctuary in a world that had been so harsh. That night, as Maria tucked her daughter into the small blanket she had provided, she reflected on the day. It had been difficult, filled with challenges and long hours, but it had also been a day of progress. She had earned her daughter's food, provided a warm place to rest, and begun to gain the trust of the people around her. For Maria, these small victories were everything. She had shown herself and her daughter that even in the most desperate circumstances, perseverance and love could make a difference. As they settled in for the night, Maria whispered a quiet prayer of thanks. She thanked the kind innkeeper for giving them a chance, thanked the townsfolk for their small gestures of kindness, and most of all, thanked the universe for allowing her to care for her daughter. She held her child close, feeling the warmth and the gentle rise and fall of her breathing. For the first time in a long while, Maria allowed herself to feel hope, not just for tomorrow, but for the days and years to come. Even in the stillness of the night, Maria thought about the future. She imagined a life where her daughter could grow strong and healthy, where they would no longer need to beg for a meal or shelter. She imagined her daughter running through fields of green, laughing freely and feeling safe in the world. These dreams, though far away, gave her strength. They reminded her why she had endured so much and why she would continue to work hard, no matter the challenges. By the time the tavern was quiet and the fire burned low, Maria finally allowed herself to rest. She lay down beside her daughter, wrapping an arm around her protectively. The day had been long, filled with work and worry, but it had also been a day of connection, learning, and hope. Maria closed her eyes, feeling the gentle rhythm of her daughter's breathing, and whispered once more, "We are going to be okay, my love. I promise." And in that quiet, warm space, surrounded by the soft glow of the fire, Maria allowed herself to believe in the possibility of a better tomorrow. She had survived one day, provided for her daughter, and earned the beginnings of trust and respect from those around her. It was a small step, but it was a step toward a brighter future. And for Maria, that was everything. The days passed slowly but steadily, and Maria's life began to settle into a rhythm, though it was far from easy. Each morning, she would wake before sunrise, helping her daughter get dressed and fed, then preparing herself for another day of work at the tavern. The little girl had grown slightly stronger since that first day, her cheeks gaining a faint glow from the food and warmth she now had. Maria watched her closely, pride swelling in her heart, and sometimes she caught herself smiling despite the exhaustion she felt. Maria's work at the tavern had become a familiar routine. She cleaned the tables, swept the floors, and helped prepare simple meals, all while keeping her daughter nearby. The townspeople had begun to take notice of her diligence. Some would stop and compliment her on the neatness of the tables or the efficiency with which she carried trays of food. Others would quietly leave a small coin or loaf of bread on the counter, a silent gesture of appreciation. At first, Maria had been shy and unsure of how to respond, but over time, she had learned to nod, smile, and accept the kindness with quiet gratitude. Despite the small kindnesses she received, not everyone in the town was welcoming. A few people whispered behind her back, questioning whether a stranger like Maria deserved the trust she was being given. Some were suspicious of her presence, wondering why she had come to the town, what she had left behind, and whether she could be relied upon. These thoughts could have discouraged Maria, but she refused to let them. She reminded herself that she was there for her daughter, and that she had a purpose greater than worrying about the opinions of others. One afternoon, as Maria carried a tray of freshly baked bread to the tables, she overheard a group of women talking quietly near the corner. "Do you think she will last?" one asked, her voice tinged with skepticism. "She is just a stranger." "How do we know she isn't here for trouble?" another replied. "She seems different, though. Look at how she cares for her daughter. I think she is genuine." Maria's ears pricked up at the second woman's words, and she felt a small warmth in her chest. She did not seek approval, but it was reassuring to hear that someone noticed her intentions. That evening, after the tavern had quieted down, Samuel approached Maria as she finished washing the dishes. "I've been watching you," he said, his voice calm but serious. "You are doing more than just surviving here. You are proving yourself every day. But there will always be people who doubt you. That is something you cannot change. What you can do is continue to show them, through your actions, who you really are." Maria nodded, feeling the weight of his words. She had learned that trust was not given lightly, and that sometimes the greatest challenge was to remain patient and consistent in the face of doubt. Maria began to notice small changes in her daughter as well. The little girl was learning to be brave, to explore, and to help in small ways around the tavern. She would carry napkins to the tables, pick up crumbs from the floor, or help by fetching water from the small kitchen barrel. Maria encouraged these efforts, praising her daughter for even the smallest tasks. "You are learning so quickly," she would say, her voice filled with gentle pride. "One day, you will be able to help many people, just as you are helping me now." Despite the progress, there were moments of struggle. Some mornings, Maria would wake to find her daughter too weak to eat or too tired to help. Some days, the work at the tavern would feel overwhelming, with a long list of chores and countless meals to prepare and serve. There were moments when Maria's shoulders ached, her hands were sore, and her feet throbbed from the constant movement. Yet, she never gave up. She reminded herself that every small effort, every extra step she took, was an investment in her daughter's future. One particularly quiet afternoon, Maria had a chance to speak with some of the townspeople outside of her usual work duties. She met an elderly woman, sitting on a bench near the town square, who greeted her kindly. "You are working very hard, my dear," the woman said. "I can see how much you care for your daughter. That is something truly special." Maria felt a lump in her throat. She had spent so much time worrying about survival and judgment that she had forgotten how meaningful a simple kind word could be. She thanked the woman and offered a small smile, feeling a sense of connection she had not felt since arriving in the town. Even Samuel began to rely on Maria more and more. He trusted her to prepare meals, manage the small kitchen, and care for her daughter while he tended to other matters in the tavern. Maria felt a sense of responsibility that went beyond mere survival. She was no longer just a desperate mother asking for help. She was becoming an essential part of the tavern's daily life. The trust Samuel placed in her was both humbling and motivating, pushing her to do her very best each day. As the days turned into weeks, Maria noticed that her daughter was gaining strength and confidence. She could run short distances, play quietly near the tavern, and even interact with some of the children in the town. Maria watched with pride, remembering the first night when her daughter had been so weak and frightened. The progress was slow but steady, and each small victory brought them closer to a sense of normalcy. The townspeople, too, were beginning to change their perception of Maria. Those who had whispered doubts were now nodding in approval or offering polite greetings. People began to trust her, to see her as a hardworking, kind, and patient woman who genuinely cared for her child and the community around her. Maria did not seek this recognition, but she accepted it quietly, knowing that respect had to be earned and that it could not be rushed. One afternoon, a young boy approached Maria with a small bundle of fresh herbs he had collected from the nearby fields. "My mother said you could use these," he said shyly, holding them out to her. Maria smiled warmly and thanked him, feeling her heart swell with gratitude. Even small gestures like this reminded her that kindness could be found in the most unexpected places. She placed the herbs carefully in a basket and carried them back to the kitchen, thinking of how they would enhance the meals she prepared for the tavern's guests. Evenings became a time for reflection and quiet connection with her daughter. After the tavern had closed, Maria would sit near the hearth with her child, brushing her hair and sharing stories. She would tell her daughter about the world beyond their small town, of faraway places filled with beauty and adventure, and of the strength and courage she carried within her. "Remember, my love," Maria would say, "even when things are difficult, we must never give up. We have each other, and that is enough to face any challenge." There were also moments of laughter and play, small but precious. Maria's daughter would hide behind tables and giggle, or chase after small animals near the tavern's edge. Maria would join in, laughing along, feeling a lightness she had not experienced in months. These moments reminded her that life, even in its struggles, could still hold joy, love, and hope. One day, a traveling merchant arrived at the tavern. He watched Maria work with admiration and asked questions about her life and her journey. Maria shared her story simply and honestly, speaking of her struggles, her love for her daughter, and her determination to survive. The merchant nodded, impressed by her resilience and courage. "It is rare to see someone so devoted and hardworking," he said. "You are an inspiration, not just to your daughter but to everyone who sees your efforts." Maria felt a quiet pride, realizing that her story, though filled with hardship, was also one of hope and perseverance. As the weeks continued, Maria began to see a new sense of stability forming in her life. Her daughter was healthier, happier, and more confident. Maria herself was stronger, more capable, and increasingly respected by the townspeople. The challenges were far from over, but she felt a growing sense of confidence that they could face whatever came next. She had proven to herself, and to those around her, that love, determination, and patience could overcome even the most difficult circumstances. Even in the quiet of the night, after the tavern had closed and the town was asleep, Maria would sit by the hearth with her daughter, holding her close. She would reflect on how far they had come, the kindness they had received, and the progress they had made. "We are stronger than we know," she would whisper, "and together we can face anything." Her daughter would nod sleepily, feeling safe and loved in her mother's arms. Through it all, Maria never lost sight of her original goal, to provide a safe, warm, and nourishing life for her daughter. Every day brought new challenges, but also new opportunities for growth, kindness, and connection. Maria understood that life was a journey, often filled with hardship, but also with beauty and hope. And as long as she had her daughter by her side, she knew they could endure anything. By the end of part 3, Maria and her daughter had not only survived but had begun to thrive. Their bond had strengthened, their hope had grown, and the townspeople had started to recognize the value and courage of the widow who had arrived in the town, so desperate and weary. Maria had shown, through her actions and her unwavering love, that perseverance, kindness, and dedication could transform lives, and that even the smallest steps forward could lead to a brighter future. The days at the tavern became easier, yet still full of meaning. Maria had begun to find a rhythm that allowed her to care for her daughter while also earning the trust of the townspeople. Her confidence had grown, not only in her ability to manage the tavern's chores, but also in her capacity to nurture her child. Every morning she would wake before sunrise, helping her daughter dress, brush her hair, and eat a small but nourishing breakfast. The little girl had grown stronger in both body and spirit, her cheeks rosy, her eyes bright, and her laughter now a frequent and joyful sound in the tavern. Maria's work ethic and patience were noticed by Samuel, the innkeeper, who increasingly relied on her for managing not just routine chores, but also more complex tasks. He trusted her to prepare meals for larger groups, oversee the cleaning of rooms, and even help organize the arrival of travelers. Each time he assigned her a new responsibility, Maria accepted it with quiet determination, always thinking of her daughter and the safety and comfort she could provide. The added trust from Samuel gave Maria a sense of pride and motivation, fueling her determination to prove herself further. As Maria worked, she began forming small but meaningful relationships with the townspeople. They saw her not as an outsider but as a hardworking, kind-hearted woman who loved her child deeply. Some neighbors would offer her fresh fruits or vegetables from their gardens, while others would smile and chat briefly, encouraging her to take a moment of rest. Maria, who had once felt isolated and fearful of judgment, slowly began to feel a sense of belonging. These small acts of kindness, combined with her consistent work, helped her feel like she was becoming a part of the community she had once only hoped to join. One morning, as Maria swept the tavern floors, she noticed a young boy peering through the doorway. He had a small bundle of herbs in his hands. "My mother said these might help you in your cooking," he said shyly, holding them out. Maria's eyes lit up as she accepted the gift with gratitude. She knelt to his level, smiled warmly, and said, "Thank you. These will make our meals even better." "You are very thoughtful." The boy grinned and ran off, leaving Maria with a renewed sense of hope and reassurance that kindness existed even in small gestures. Her daughter, too, was learning the value of work and responsibility. Maria often encouraged her to help in small ways around the tavern, carrying napkins, wiping crumbs from tables, or carefully placing plates on the counter. Each time the little girl completed a task, Maria praised her gently, reinforcing her confidence. "See, my love. Every little bit you do helps," Maria said, ruffling her daughter's hair. The child's eyes would light up with pride and she would giggle, thrilled to contribute. These moments helped both mother and daughter feel capable and strong, even in the face of their earlier hardships. Despite the progress they had made, life was not without challenges. On particularly busy days, the tavern would fill with travelers and townspeople alike, each with their own requests and demands. Maria often found herself running from table to table, managing dishes, cleaning spills, and attending to guests' needs. At times, she would feel tired to the point of exhaustion, but she reminded herself of her daughter's smile, her laughter, and her reliance on her mother's care. This gave Maria the strength to continue, knowing that her efforts were not just for the tavern, but for the well-being of the little girl she loved more than anything. One afternoon, while the tavern was bustling with activity, Samuel approached Maria with a gentle smile. "You've grown remarkably since the day you arrived," he said. "Not only have you earned the trust of the townspeople, but you have also shown them the value of hard work and patience. Your daughter is lucky to have you guiding her." Maria blushed slightly, humbled by his words. She had never expected praise or recognition, yet hearing this encouraged her to continue striving for a better life for her child. As the weeks passed, Maria began to see a deeper transformation, not just in herself, but in the community around her. The townspeople who had once doubted her were now offering support, guidance, and friendship. One woman taught Maria a new way to bake bread more efficiently, while another offered tips on preparing hearty soups that could feed more people with limited ingredients. Maria absorbed every piece of advice eagerly, knowing it would benefit both her daughter and the tavern's guests. Evenings became a special time for Maria and her daughter. After the tavern had closed and the last travelers had left, they would sit by the hearth, sharing stories and dreams. Maria would tell her daughter about faraway lands, the adventures she could one day have, and the importance of courage, kindness, and perseverance. "No matter what challenges come our way," Maria would say softly, "we can face them together. You and I, my love, we are stronger than we know." Her daughter would listen with wide eyes, soaking in every word, and sometimes respond with a shy smile or a giggle. One particular evening, as Maria tucked her daughter into the small blanket provided by the innkeeper, she reflected on how far they had come. She remembered the first night they had arrived, hungry, exhausted, and uncertain of what the future held. Now, after weeks of hard work, they were safe, fed, and slowly gaining acceptance in the community. The progress was small, incremental, and sometimes difficult to see, but Maria knew that every effort, every act of kindness, and every task completed with care had contributed to the life they were building together. The little girl's health and energy continued to improve. She began exploring more freely, playing with other children from the town, and learning simple skills from her mother. Maria took every opportunity to teach her child about responsibility, patience, and empathy. She encouraged her to share with others, help those in need, and value the small joys in life. "See how far you've come," Maria said one morning as her daughter carried a basket of bread to the tables. "You are learning, growing, and making a difference, even in small ways." Her daughter's eyes sparkled with pride, and she hugged her mother tightly. One day, a traveling merchant arrived at the tavern. He watched Maria work with admiration, noting her efficiency, patience, and kindness toward the guests. Curious, he asked her about her story, and Maria shared her journey honestly, speaking of her struggles, her love for her daughter, and the small victories that had kept them going. The merchant listened intently, nodding with respect and admiration. "It is rare to see such dedication and courage," he said. "You are an example to all who meet you." Maria smiled quietly, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. Her life, once so uncertain and desperate, had begun to create ripples of inspiration beyond what she had imagined. Samuel, too, recognized the change in Maria. He had offered her a single night of work, not knowing what to expect, yet she had exceeded all expectations. Her diligence, patience, and compassion had transformed not only her life and her daughter's life, but also the atmosphere of the tavern itself. Samuel realized that sometimes a single act of trust and opportunity could spark a chain of events that changed everything for the better. Maria also began to think about the future beyond the tavern. She dreamed of a life where her daughter could grow up healthy, educated, and free from hunger and fear. She considered ways to contribute to the town, perhaps by teaching other mothers how to cook, care for children, or manage a small household efficiently. Her thoughts were always guided by the desire to provide not just for her daughter, but for others who might face similar challenges. Even the smallest gestures of the townspeople continued to touch Maria deeply. A neighbor brought her a small bundle of firewood on a chilly morning, while another gifted her a piece of fabric for her daughter's clothing. These acts, simple as they were, reminded Maria that human kindness existed in abundance, and that a supportive community could make life not only bearable but joyful. She absorbed each gesture with gratitude, feeling strengthened and inspired to continue her work with patience and love. Through it all, Maria's daughter continued to thrive. She laughed more freely, helped in small ways around the tavern, and began forming friendships with other children in the town. Maria encouraged these connections, knowing that social interaction was an essential part of growth and learning. The child's joy and curiosity reminded Maria of why she had endured so much hardship and strengthened her resolve to create a stable, happy life for her family. One quiet evening, after the tavern had closed and the fire burned low, Maria reflected on the journey so far. She had faced doubt, skepticism, and exhaustion, yet through patience, hard work, and love, she had found acceptance, stability, and hope. Her daughter was thriving, the townspeople were beginning to trust and respect her, and Maria herself had discovered a strength she had never known she possessed. She held her daughter close and whispered softly, "We are safe now, my love. And we will continue to grow stronger every day. Together, we can face anything." By the end of this period, Maria had not only secured a small measure of stability, but had also begun to transform the perception of those around her. The widow who had arrived desperate and weary was now a symbol of perseverance, love, and hope. She had proven that through patience, consistent effort, and genuine kindness, even the most difficult circumstances could be transformed. Maria had come a long way, yet she knew the journey was not over. Each day brought new challenges, but also new opportunities to learn, grow, and make a difference in her daughter's life and the lives of those around her. The morning sun rose gently over the town, casting golden light across the rooftops and streets. The birds sang softly in the trees, and the fresh smell of dew and earth filled the air. Maria woke early, as she had done every day for weeks, but this morning felt different. There was a quiet sense of accomplishment in the air, a feeling that all the struggles, all the hard work, and all the sleepless nights had led to this moment. She gently shook her daughter awake, her eyes shining with warmth. "Good morning, my love," Maria whispered softly. "It's another beautiful day." Her daughter blinked sleepily, stretching her tiny arms, and then smiled at her mother. "Good morning, Mama," she said in her small, sweet voice. Maria hugged her tightly, feeling the rise and fall of her daughter's chest, strong and steady now, a testament to all the care and nourishment she had received. Over the past months, the little girl had grown in both strength and confidence, and Maria felt an overwhelming sense of pride. The tavern was already bustling with activity. Samuel had started preparing breakfast for the townspeople and travelers, and the warmth of the hearth filled the room with light and comfort. Maria moved among the tables, wiping crumbs, arranging mugs, and serving food with her usual grace and patience. The townspeople greeted her warmly, offering smiles and nods of approval. It was clear that the widow who had once arrived desperate and uncertain had now become a valued and respected member of the community. Maria's daughter stayed close by, helping in small ways, carrying napkins, or dusting the tables with a tiny cloth. She had grown attentive and responsible, learning from her mother's example. Every action, every small task she completed was met with a gentle word of encouragement from Maria. "You are doing wonderfully, my love," Maria said, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. "I am so proud of you." The child's eyes sparkled with pride, and she hugged her mother tightly, a bond of love and trust stronger than ever. As the morning progressed, more travelers arrived at the tavern. Maria worked tirelessly, moving from table to table, attending to each guest with care. Her efficiency and dedication had become well known, and many of the patrons offered compliments or small gifts, fresh fruits, warm bread, or kind words. Each gesture reminded Maria of how far she had come, and how much she had grown since that first night when she had begged Samuel for work to feed her starving daughter. Samuel, the innkeeper, watched from behind the counter with quiet satisfaction. He had taken a chance on Maria when no one else would, giving her a single night of work. That decision had transformed not only her life, but also the atmosphere of the tavern itself. Maria's presence brought warmth, care, and a sense of reliability that everyone could see. Samuel smiled as he observed her handling a busy morning with patience and grace. "You've done more than I could have ever imagined," he said quietly to himself. During a brief lull, Maria took a moment to speak with some of the townspeople who had grown fond of her. A woman who had once been skeptical approached and said softly, "I was wrong about you, Maria. You have shown strength, kindness, and patience. Your daughter is lucky to have you." Maria smiled, feeling a warmth that came from genuine recognition. "Thank you," she said softly. "I only want to care for my daughter and do my best. That is all I can promise." The woman nodded, understanding the depth of Maria's words. Her daughter, now stronger and more confident than ever, played quietly near the hearth while Maria worked. She had made friends with some of the local children, and her laughter occasionally rang through the tavern, light and joyful. Maria watched her, feeling a sense of relief and happiness she had not known in years. The girl's growth was a reminder that perseverance, love, and care could transform even the most desperate situations into something beautiful. That afternoon, Maria had a chance to step outside the tavern for a brief moment. She carried a small basket of bread and walked toward the edge of the town square. The sun was warm on her face, and the fresh air felt rejuvenating. She looked around at the people walking, talking, and smiling. It was a different world from the one she had arrived in, filled with possibility and kindness. Maria felt a sense of belonging she had never known before, a reassurance that she and her daughter could truly have a future here. As she returned to the tavern, she noticed a small crowd gathered by the doorway. Samuel was there, smiling warmly. "I have something to tell you, Maria," he said. "Your work, your dedication, and your care for your daughter have been noticed by everyone. The town wants to honor you in a small way. They would like to help you and your daughter so that you can continue to thrive here." Maria felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She had never expected such recognition, and the gratitude she felt was overwhelming. The townspeople, now more like friends than strangers, approached Maria with gifts and offers of help. Some food, some small household items, and even advice on raising her daughter in this community. Each gesture reminded her that kindness and generosity were powerful forces, capable of transforming lives in ways she had never imagined. Maria accepted everything with humility and gratitude, her heart full of hope and joy. Her daughter watched the scene with curiosity and excitement. Maria knelt beside her and whispered, "Look, my love. This is what happens when we are patient, kind, and hardworking. People see our hearts and they respond with care. We have come so far, and this is only the beginning." The little girl nodded, understanding in her small way the lessons her mother had been teaching her all along. Evenings were now a time of peace and reflection for Maria and her daughter. After the tavern had closed and the last travelers had departed, they would sit by the hearth, the warmth of the fire filling the room. Maria would tell her daughter stories of courage, kindness, and perseverance, weaving lessons of hope and patience into each tale. "Remember, my love," she would say softly, "even in the darkest times we can find light. We can grow, we can help others, and we can create a life filled with love and joy." The little girl would cuddle close, listening intently, her eyes wide and sparkling. She had learned so much from her mother, not only about survival and resilience, but also about love, compassion, and the importance of caring for others. Maria felt a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing that she had not only protected her daughter from hunger and hardship, but also taught her the values that would guide her throughout life. Over time, Maria began to think beyond the tavern. She dreamed of ways to help other families who were struggling, inspired by the kindness she had received and the sense of community she had found. She considered teaching other mothers about cooking, caring for their children, and finding hope even in difficult circumstances. The idea of giving back, of transforming her struggles into lessons for others, filled her with purpose and excitement. Maria's daughter, now full of energy and curiosity, explored the town with growing confidence. She played with other children, helped her mother with chores, and began to learn simple skills that would serve her well in life. Each day brought new discoveries and small victories, from learning to carry water safely to helping bake bread for the tavern. Maria watched her daughter's growth with awe and gratitude, realizing that every hardship they had faced had prepared them for this brighter chapter. Samuel, the innkeeper, continued to support Maria in small but meaningful ways. He provided guidance, trusted her with more responsibilities, and encouraged her to grow both personally and professionally. Maria respected him deeply, not only for the chance he had given her, but also for the quiet wisdom he shared. His belief in her potential had played a significant role in their journey, and she often reflected on the night she had first begged for work and the long path that had followed. One day, a traveling teacher arrived in the town. He observed Maria and her daughter, noticing the child's curiosity, eagerness to help, and quick learning. Impressed, he approached Maria with an offer to teach her daughter basic reading and writing. Maria's heart leapt with joy. Education had once seemed a distant dream, but now it was within reach. She eagerly agreed, realizing that this opportunity could open new doors for her child, giving her a chance at a future filled with possibility. As the weeks and months passed, Maria and her daughter settled into a life that, while still humble, was filled with stability, hope, and joy. They had transformed from a mother and child desperate for survival into a family thriving within a supportive community. Their days were busy but meaningful, filled with work, learning, and laughter. Each night, as they sat together by the fire, Maria reflected on the journey they had undertaken, from the stormy night of their arrival to the warmth and acceptance they now enjoyed. Through it all, Maria never forgot the lesson she had learned: the value of perseverance, the power of love, and the importance of patience and kindness. She had faced doubt, exhaustion, and fear, yet she had emerged stronger and more confident, ready to face whatever the future might hold. Her daughter had grown alongside her, learning resilience, empathy, and courage. Together, they had turned a story of desperation into one of hope and triumph. And so, in the quiet moments by the fire, Maria would hold her daughter close, whispering softly, "We did it, my love. We have come so far, and this is only the beginning. Life will have challenges, but together we can face anything. Remember that you are loved, strong, and capable of achieving great things." Her daughter, resting peacefully, would smile softly, feeling safe, loved, and inspired. The town had embraced them. The tavern had become a home, and Maria had discovered that through determination, kindness, and love, even the hardest circumstances could be transformed. What had begun as a desperate plea for a single night of work had grown into a life filled with hope, stability, and endless possibilities. Maria and her daughter had shown that courage and perseverance could overcome fear, that love could triumph over despair, and that even the smallest acts of kindness could create lasting change. And as the sun set each evening, casting a warm glow over the town and the tavern, Maria would look at her daughter and smile, knowing that they had built something far more enduring than shelter or food. They had built a life of hope, love, and resilience that would carry them forward into a bright and promising future.